Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Draw Step. Are you new to Commander? Are you trying to learn how to build your own decks or build better decks? Are you, I don't know, maybe trying to make your decks a little bit more toxic just to get under your friends' skins? Well then, boy howdy, this is a video for you. In today's video, we are going to break down some of the best tips and tricks to make your decks more effective and make sure that you are winning more of those games against your friends. Now, even if you are a seasoned Magic player or have been building decks for a while, you're going to want to stick around because there are a few little nuances and things that we're going to cover in this video that you're going to find useful. Starting out, and this I think should be ground level rule number one for everyone, is you should, if you haven't heard of it or looked at it before, check out the website edhrec.com. Gotta put it there. Unfortunately, it's not a sponsor. This isn't a sponsored video. I wish they were. But this is an invaluable tool when it comes to building decks. When you do finally select a commander that you want to build around, you can go to this website, put that commander in, and then it is going to show you the most popular cards that people are using in those decks. So that's going to give you a leg up from the start in kind of figuring out what cards you're going to want to get, how you're going to want to build the deck, and some of the ways that other people are building around that commander. Now, from there, you really have to look at the commander itself. How are you picking the commander? Who are you building around, and why are you building around it? The beauty of Magic is that there are so many. There is such a vast plethora of legendary creatures that you can choose from to build decks around. It really comes down to figuring out what type of play style you prefer. My experience has been that a lot of people kind of follow through similar trends in their progression of playing Magic. When most Magic players start out, they find it can be a lot of fun to play a lot of destruction, maybe land destruction, maybe doing some of the more taboo things that more seasoned Magic players don't enjoy as much. And don't get me wrong, I was that guy. I still am that guy sometimes. It's still fun to mess with my opponents and get under their skin. But what you will learn the more you play it is that that sort of play style can get old really quickly. So you'll probably start to evolve in your taste and what you're looking for. With all of the different color combinations there's so many different avenues you can go down. What I normally recommend is starting out with either a monocolored commander or a commander with one or two colors in its color identity. The trouble with using a WUBRG commander, a commander that has all five colors, is quite often you then get into a situation where you're like, well, now I can choose from all the colors. There's so many good things, it's hard to pare down exactly what you're putting into the deck. A good example would be Niv-Mizzet Guild Pact. This is actually a deck that I have built, and if you want to see the exact deck build and what I put into it and why I put it into the deck, you can check out that video after this. It's going to be linked up above. But this is a good example of working with a WUBRG commander, but being very specific with it. Because what Niv-Mizzet says is whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it deals X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards, you gain X life, where X is the number of different color pairs among permanents you control that are exactly two colors. Now, in this particular example, what I liked about this commander is twofold. One, it is fairly unique. It's doing something a little bit different. It's giving you a lot of value. You're getting card draw, you're getting damage, you're gaining life. You're doing quite a bit for swinging with your commander, which is something that you're obviously wanting to do anyway. But on top of that, it now narrows your focus. You're now looking at exactly, okay, I'm trying to fill my deck with as many 2-color combo things as possible. So for example, when you're looking at counterspells, and I'll get into counterspells and some of the other things later on in this video, but things like Counter Squall, where it's a blue and black, is that more restrictive than a typical counterspell, which is, you know, normally just blue or blue and colorless? Yes, but it works with your commander and what your commander is trying to do. So those are examples of narrowing in your focus and what you're looking for in a commander. There are a lot of just overly powered or very pushed commanders these days. You see them come out in a lot of these newer sets where it has everything just stapled right on it, and you can build a deck incredibly easy around that. And there is nothing wrong with that, especially if you are just starting. But what I personally enjoy, and I think that as you start to build more decks, you'll find is more enjoyable, is finding the commanders that have niche or intriguing abilities. I have a mono red commander. It's unique in that, again, as you can see, it's doing damage to you to do damage to your opponent. That's not something you would normally want to do, or you would think that you would want to do, but when built correctly, you're going to be getting far more value out of it than your opponents. So again, what I'm trying to get at is that this game is most fun when you find a niche or find something a little bit more off the beaten trail to build your deck around and try to fill it with as much synergy as possible. One of the more debated topics, and I think this is the third most important thing to look at, is the amount of land that you put into a deck. There is, again, a lot of dispute. A lot of people will tell you different things, but my personal rule of thumb is that when it comes to building a deck, you want no less than 35 lands in there. 35 to 36, in my opinion, is really the sweet spot of the amount of mana that you're wanting to put into a deck. There is nothing worse than sitting there with only like 1 or 2 lands in hand or on the battlefield, watching your opponents pop off, do a bunch of crazy stuff, and you can't do anything because you're mana locked. You have no mana. So making sure that you have enough mana in the deck is critical for good gameplay. But you also don't want to put in, 40 plus, because then at that point you're going to be sitting around with a ton of mana and nothing to do with it. So if I were you, if you're building a deck and you're just really struggling to get the mana to play the things you're wanting to do, I would say, 1, make sure that you have at least that 35 to 36 land cards, and then 2, looking at your ramp package. Wizards of the Coast has made this incredibly simple, and in my opinion, almost too simple, with some of the almost auto includes. If you are running a deck, I mean, you can put this in a monocolor deck, but I would say anything 2 colors and above, you are going to want to put an Arcane Signet, I would say, in pretty much all of your decks. 2 mana for 1 mana of any color. Anytime you can get a 2-to-1 payback on a ramp piece, so paying 2 mana and then it taps for 1, that is a great investment and really going to help speed up your gameplay. The higher you go in the tier system when it comes to Commander, it's all about speed. It's about trying to either get a combo out or just, honestly, it's mostly just combos these days to win Commander. But even with doing damage, commander damage, whatever, you want to be doing it as quickly as possible and have the mana to be able to interact with what your opponents are doing as well too. So an Arcane Signet, I would say that would be an include in almost every deck. The other one that I hold firmly to should be in an auto include in every single deck is a Soul Ring. This is a no-brainer. I was just saying about how 2 mana to get 1 mana back is a good deal. With this, it's 1 mana to get 2 mana back. It's broken, really. I'm amazed that either they even made the card, but now they've made so many copies of it, I doubt they would ever, touch it or ban it. But if you can get this down on turn 1, you are going to be miles ahead of all of your opponents. I think one of the strongest plays outside of a competitive sense that I have seen, and it happens surprisingly often, is when a player, an opponent, can lay a land, lay a Soul Ring, tap it for 2, and then lay an Arcane Signet. Now by the time they get around to turn 2, they are going to have 4, 5 mana available to them. That can sometimes spell defeat for you right then and there. So having a good ramp package, depending on what you're doing, is going to depend on how many ramp pieces you're going to want to put into it. In going back to this example of the Niv Mizzet deck that I built, I have, almost 10 cards that could be seen as ramp, whether it be like a Mana Rock, like a Thought Vessel, Arcane Signet, Mana Dork, like a Noble Hierarch, that a creature that taps for mana, or a more permanent thing like a, how do you pronounce it, Circuitous Root, which goes and fetches you a land. There's a couple different ways that you can build depending on the color identity. Obviously, as everybody knows, green is the best at it, but there are other colors and other ways to ramp. I think 10 may be a bit much for this particular deck, but several of them have the multicolored that worked well with my commander's ability anyway, so it made sense to double down, both help with my commander and also speed the deck up. But in general, I would say you would want about 35, 36 lands and about 4 to 5 other ways to ramp and get you ahead. Number 4, or the next step, would be the destruction side of things. You're going to want to be able to interact with your opponents. One of the things I have found with people who are building decks for the first time, again, myself included, is that I spent all of my time or focus on building my deck of like, okay, what are the best pieces to work well with my commander? And yes, that does make your deck strong or efficient at doing your thing, but it fails to acknowledge or deal with your other opponents. You don't have enough ways to interact with what other people are doing, so they can then mess you up. So you're going to want to have ways to work around that. If you have blue in the color identity, which is one of my personal favorite colors, then you have obviously access to counter spells like we talked about with like the Counter Squall. 2 of the best counter spells that are not $50 to $100, like a Force of Will or something like that. Something that's more reasonably priced. Obviously, you have like the OG counterspell. I would say most blue decks, it's a pretty good idea to have a counterspell in there. I know it's a little redundant, but you get what I'm saying. The other counterspell that I think gets a little overlooked, I think is starting to become more popular or see more gameplay, an Offer You Can't Refuse. This is a personal favorite of mine. It counters a non-creature spell, which most of the time is the type of spell that you're going to want to counter, especially like if somebody's playing a board wipe or something that's going to really harm you. Most of those are instant sorceries, that sort of thing. So for 1 blue mana, you're getting to counter it. Yes, you give them treasures, but it's worth it to you to be able to prevent them from doing the nasty things that they can do. So the one thing I want to caution when it comes to counter spells, though, is don't be that one guy. And I know my editor is going to say that I am that one guy. Sometimes I do have some decks like this, but don't play exclusively counter spells. Like the I think the commander's Barl, Chief of Justice. I might have pronounced that wrong, but that's the general card. Again, we'll have it on the screen here. Where that commander's whole shtick, his whole thing, is about countering spells. Yes, it can be strong, it can be effective, but that is going to create some very, very obnoxious gameplay. And again, I enjoy obnoxious gameplay, so that could be a deck that you may want to build, but if you don't want to piss off all of your friends, you may want to avoid that. But having at least 3 to 4 counter spells is going to be very helpful when you're building your deck. Now, if you don't have blue in your color identity, there's a couple other ways you can go. White is obviously great at exiling things with cards like Sword to Plowshares. Black is a little bit more destruction based of creatures and enchantments. Green is good at artifact and enchantment destruction. So in all of the colors, there's different ways of dealing with it. If you have access to green, I think a very slept on card is Trigon Predator. For 3 mana, it's a 2/3 with flying, which is already a very good stat line. And it also says when it deals combat damage to a player, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Artifact decks are one of the stronger archetypes or deck builds in the format. And having a constant, repeated way to be able to take care of that is so strong with this card. I don't see it being used in enough decks, and maybe there's a reason why some people don't like it, or if you don't have access to green blue, totally understand that. But if you have those colors, I think that this is a really great include in about 90% of the decks that could run it. From there, one of the other things that I wanted to cover is alternate win cons. Again, if you are trying to build your deck to be competitive, it's all about combos these days. Thassa's Oracle, I would guess, is probably in about 90% of competitive decks. And don't get me wrong, that can be fun. That does have its place in the meta and the gameplay. But I personally find that gets to be a little bit stale if you just have like a 2-card combo and you're just playing that over and over again. Every time you play that deck, you're just trying to get to that one combo. That's it. That's how you end the game. To each their own. If you enjoy that sort of thing, that's great. Do that. But I personally find that gets boring, and the decks that I built that are like that, I end up putting aside after a while, not playing them anymore. That being said, alternate win cons can be a lot of fun. One of my favorites, one of the first alternate win cons that I put into a deck, and I still like to put into decks that have a lot of card draw, is Approach of the Second Sun. It says, if Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. It's also 7 mana. So it is very expensive. An opponent could counter it. That's probably the best thing they could do is counter it, really. And that's very possible. It's not going to work every time, but when it does work, it is super satisfying to pull that off. And if none of your opponents do have counter spells on hand or the mana to spend it, being able to win on your turn somewhat out of the blue, especially if you have a quick card draw or a quick way to get that back, that can be a lot of fun. There's a lot of great alternate win cons now these days. I know there's some even printed on lands. There's like a gate that's like if you have 10 other gates, then you win the game. So those alternate win cons, which in my opinion is a little bit different from just comboing off, those can be a lot of fun and very satisfying to come out of the game and be like, yeah, I won with an Approach to the Second Sun instead of commander damage or what have you. Now, after my little tirade about not enjoying combos, there are some really fun combos out there. Circling back to my Niv Mizzet deck, one that I have in here, I have a few actually built into the Niv Mizzet deck. The first half of the combo is Drogskull Reaver, which again, white-blue. It is the mana pair that the commander is looking for, but it says whenever you gain life, you draw a card. And then the other part is Queza Augur of Agonies. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And it says whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So as soon as you either draw a card or gain 1 life, you're going to start that loop and it is going to kill off your opponents. It's an infinite combo there. Those are nice, and I have quite a few of them. I actually have 4 different combos, 3 of which all revolve around other Niv Mizzets. It's a Niv Mizzet deck, and it has 4 different Niv Mizzets in the deck. So that there's redundancy in it and alternate ways to play the game. What makes it enjoyable is that you're not stuck looking for just the one. You have multiple different ways that the game can play out, so it can still keep it fresh and allow you to have varying gameplay every time. At the end of the day, there's a lot of different ways that you can build a deck, but I think the most important thing is finding first and foremost, finding a commander that sounds appealing to you, that you look at it and go, all right, this is something that I want to see this effect play out over and over again. Because again, with your commander, you're going to be able to cast it over and over. That's what you should try to focus the gameplay on. One other note when it comes to the commander itself is I have started to find increasingly, though, that I like commanders that don't have to swing in order to do their ability. So like Niv Mizzet, for instance, is whenever he deals combat damage, it does its thing. That is all well and good, but there are so many ways for your opponents to kill off your commander that then if your whole gameplay and everything that you built around is waiting for your commander to attack or do combat damage, that can get frustrating if your commander's in the command zone the whole time. So there are some very strong commanders that can just sit on the battlefield and give you advantages. And in my opinion, finding commanders like that is going to make your decks more powerful. Finally, the most important thing you can do, probably the best tip and advice that I can give you to build better decks and more competitive decks, is to follow the draw step. Because every Friday we release new deck builds, new advice videos, new breakdowns on different formats such as Oathbreaker, things like that. And watching those videos, I can guarantee are going to make you even better at playing Magic and even better at making toxic decks that are going to frustrate your friends. So make sure you subscribe, ring the bell notification so you don't miss any of our uploads, and share this with your friends. Share with your friends who are just getting into Magic or trying to figure out how to make better decks. If there's anything that you think I missed or some tips or tricks that you have learned that's made you better at deck building, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. Love interacting with you guys and talking about different ideas for decks. There's going to be a video appearing on screen. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be another great deck build, and I will see you guys next time.